When I first read David Blaine's book, Mysterious Stranger, he mentions as to how a picture of Houdini balanced precariously on an edge changed his life. He saw that picture, and from then on, he knew that he was going to become a magician. Me, I had the same experience. However, I saw this picture of Jeff Sheridan, a magician we're going to be looking at today, in New York City performing what is a card manipulation routine in what I believe to be Central Park. This picture made me want to become a full-time virgin. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is my favorite piece of magic of all time. Jeff Sheridan performing Swan Lake Rope. I remember reading about it when I was younger, and when his DVDs first came out, I devoured them, and I could do this routine with my eyes closed. So let's go over it and break it down with full virginity. I have a couple admissions to make, as cringy as it may be. I got a turtleneck specifically because I watched this man perform and I wanted to be like him, and I thought it looked super cool. Same thing with this bag. I thought it was cool to be working out of a bag in the capacity that he does. In his act that he performed on the streets, in the mean streets of New York City, in this case Central Park, he would use that bag and would deposit the cards on it throughout the card manipulation sequence. Here he's getting into a very standard rope routine, a combination of a lot of things from George Sands and whatnot, but his attention to detail is what makes this a masterpiece. It's all about creating visual lines. It's all about creating these weird moments that could almost be taken as snapshots. And here you see it when he unravels the rope. Everything is designed to get your attention. Again, he performed this routine every single day in Central Park, surrounded by the worst kind of people, New Yorkers, people that are so full of themselves, they don't think anything else is going on the planet, and yet he managed to stop them with this trick. One thing to note is that Jeff Sheridan was huge on surrealism. I would say that he's probably the best surrealist magician we've ever had. And here we're given to a perfect example of that, with his hands being converted into scissors. So in this case, he's a magician. How else is he going to cut rope? Well, with his hands. And how is he going to do that? By simulating a scissor with his fingertips. It's a very surreal effect, and yet the product is what you see before you. If you see through his body of work, you're going to see that it is in fact a massive concept in his life. One of his early shows was called Visual Alchemy, and that I think is a perfect phrase to encompass the way that Jeff Sheridan approaches magic. Mind you, all this without ever saying a word. So he's managing to use his body language to convey emotion, which is very, very difficult. You could see this done excellently with Teller from Penn and Teller, where he doesn't say a word and is able to convey what is essentially language, but through his motion. From that last sequence where he manages to cut the rope, he's left with a smaller rope and a larger rope. So why not make both ropes the same size? And he does this in what is a just eye-popping sequence that seems honestly like it came out of a cartoon. One thing Jeff Sheridan also does is that he commands space. In this case, remember, this is a routine designed for the street, designed for busking style magic. So he has to take up these large motions that get attention. And in this case, this particular sequence is one that does that. As I mentioned before, he also likes to pause in certain places where he wants the participants to take a visual snapshot of what's taking place. Another example of this surrealist thought, but in magic form. He manages to take a rope and put the ends from one side to the other, one at a time. So for a moment there, we're left with an object that doesn't make sense, that shouldn't exist. It's a rope that has ends, in this case, on both sides at the same time. Notice also how the white contrasts his black shirt. That's also done on purpose. Jeff Sheridan says this entire routine is based on lines and the perception of those lines changing. The answer is yes, I'm gay for Jeff Sheridan. Now, as I've mentioned before, all of his actions are motivated. Every single thing he does has a purpose. The little pauses, as I mentioned before, are to provide clarity to the effect of the participant. In this case, this is a beautiful and, again, a surreal action where he manages to have the thumb hole of the scissor penetrate a loop in rope. And it's different because usually you would expect the scissor to be used to cut the rope. But no, he actually manages to somehow penetrate that rope through the holes of the scissor, which is just backwards thinking and perfectly exemplifying of his genius when it comes to creating surreal moments of magic. Notice here specifically after the actual penetration of the scissor that he tugs on it to prove the fact that it's actually a solid scissor, not a gimmicked one, and it's something that plays to a larger audience even though the props are minimal and small. This is the interactive portion of this particular trick. Notice how he waits until the audience dies down for their reaction in order to proceed to the next part. And this I always thought was such a cool way of handing somebody a scissor where he just puts it in the back of his hand. Very classy, very elegant. And here he's going to have this helper cut the rope. And you could see that there's going to be a lot of byplay, a lot of bits. He manages to convey a lot of emotion, in this case annoyance, without ever saying a word. I also love this particular part of the routine because it's, again, surreal. Why does the rope not match after the participant has cut it? It shouldn't make sense. You have two different pieces of rope, and yet no matter how often they cut it or how many times they cut it, it still manages to be a mismatch. And look at how much he manages to squeeze out for what is a very simple sequence. The entire routine is not difficult to perform, but yet he manages to make it theater. Out of every bit of magic in this entire routine, that little exchange is my favorite, where he has the participant hand him back the scissors. Because of how they're positioned, the easiest way to hand it to him is the wrong way around, and he manages to convey annoyance and anger, and it's just a humorous moment, again, without ever saying a single word. You see how fun that ending sequence is? You're getting a lot of motion, a lot of action, a lot of entertainment value for what is essentially nothing. It's a moving knot effect, and he manages to take the knot out, but he stretches it out and he makes it entertaining, which is, I believe, his mastery at work. You should check out my mastery at work by checking out the PigCake Magic Academy, the home of over 1,500 videos going over card stuff, coin stuff, everything you need to become the best magician you could possibly be, all for the low, low price of a single White Claw a month, which is $5. $5, and you get access to 1,500 videos. I think that's a bargain, and counting. I'm always adding new content, so check it out. I would have probably given my left nut to to see Jeff Sheridan perform on the street, and I think that it would have been a great project to have him actually go on the street and perform his classics. But I guess because the studio and maybe some limitations in L&L publishing, they had to perform it in studio. They try to, I guess, make a brick wall in the background and make it seem like it's somehow on the street. But I thought that it was just a wonderful project. Somehow it got some weird mixed reviews from back in the day. I thought all 4 DVDs were great and full of just phenomenal content, but this is a perfect representation of Jeff Sheridan's work in action. He manages to squeeze so much from so little. A rope, some scissors, and that's it. And honestly, I hate rope magic. I think it's cringy. If you're a person and you take out some rope from your fucking bag at a restaurant, I mean, what's the purpose of the rope? Are you going to tie somebody up? There's not really fun connotations. But I guess if you're a performer and you're hired for the venue, it's like SpongeBalls. It's part and parcel of being a magician. And honestly, I'm being a hypocrite because I did this routine every single day. I studied it, I performed it, I practiced it every single day when I learned it when I was, I believe, 14 years old. And I'm willing to bet that I could actually still do it without having to refresh the actual method itself. I probably have the muscle memory of the trick, and if I get enough likes in this video because I'm a whore, I'll probably post a performance video. Why the fuck not?
I see you again, when 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 I see you again.